You are a creator. You create your career, your business. You create a family. You create your future. On the Results Driven Life by Design broadcast, get ready to hear from people from all walks of life and how they overcame the odds to create a life led by purpose and vision. Here's your host, Kia Arian.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to today's broadcast. I always begin by reminding you that your skills, your talents, and your experiences have been given to you for a reason. No one else has that unique combination, and no one else has your voice. You have a message that the world needs to hear. And so, as you listen to today's broadcast, I invite you into a greater vision for your life that resonates beyond what you do, but why you do it. Now, on today's show, I am very excited to talk to Michael Gross. Michael is a commodity trading advisor with an incredible career scaling an investment firm from 4 million AUM to 250 million AUM in only 48 months. He's the founder of HighNetWorthClients.com, and he's also known as the Doctor of AUM Growth. At the peak of his career, Michael enjoyed an easy work schedule, admiration from peers, near celebrity status, an eager waiting list of high net worth investors ready to write million-dollar checks, waiting in line to be allowed to work with him, until it all suddenly went away. So he's going to tell us a little bit about that today in his own words. Now, as for me, I met Michael about 5 years later through a referral from his mentor and teacher, Dan Kennedy. And when I had a conversation with him, he was in what I call a what's next phase of life. This is a place where many high achievers find themselves in, and it's what I call the other side of success. Externally, they've built a life of their dreams, they've achieved freedom that few ever reach, but internally, they've hit a wall. They can't keep doing what they've been doing, but the next path hasn't fully revealed itself. Their work, or in Michael's case, retirement, no longer reflects who they really are. They've grown and shifted, but their message hasn't caught up. The old success doesn't feel gratifying. So from my conversation, I was able to see that there was more to Michael and his life and the message he carried, and it just needed to be cracked open. And so I invited Michael to take part in a brand discovery program, which led him to launch his current entrepreneurial venture, High Net Worth Clients. And we're going to hear more about that and his journey. So Michael, welcome. So excited to have you on the show.
Thank you, Kia. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So let's start with, I kind of tease people about, you reached the pinnacle and then it all came down and here you are. So tell us a little bit about that journey in your own words.
Well, it is a story of being at almost the absolute top of an industry and having it all crash and burn almost instantly. And a lot of people probably have never heard of the commodity trading advisor industry. It is a niche within a niche part of the investment community. It's really for high net worth, sophisticated investors that are willing to take a portion of their net worth and invest it in higher risk type of trading and investing in leveraged products. And everybody in that business accepts a little bit higher level of risk, and that includes the commodity trading advisor. And every once in a while, one of them steps on a landmine, and that unfortunately is what happened to the company I was with at the time. What happened was, everything I had vanished. The business is gone, the reputation is gone, and yeah, you can start from scratch, but I wasn't sure. It really wasn't my business. I was the marketing guy that built the clients. But as far as starting my own, I wasn't sure I wanted to make that commitment. And so I spent a couple of years just kind of resettling, deciding what I wanted to do. And one revelation I came upon is, well, maybe instead of doing this, I could teach other CTAs how to do what I did, how to achieve that level of success. Because the biggest problem they have is they know how to trade and invest, but most of them have no idea how to get clients. And that was my specialty. And I thought I had a lot to give and a very original approach that had worked for me over my 22-year career. And so I thought I would go into teaching that. And that's when I came upon meeting you and helped me build it to a point where I could launch that.
That's awesome. a lot of people kind of reach that shift. Not even a lot of people. A lot of people don't reach that shift in their career. They they sort of move along, doing what they're supposed to do. We're getting like deep into it from the get go. They move along doing what they're supposed to do, and with this sort of undercurrent of there's got to be more. There's got to be more, but they don't know what that more is, and they don't even know how to discover that more because outwardly everything sort of looks right, right? You've got the success, you've got the money, whatever it is that the goals that you want to achieve. Some people will hit a crisis point, which you did. You hit a crisis point of okay, it forced you into a different phase of your life, and some people don't. So let me ask you this, and I'm going to get into a lot of different topics. Let me ask you this: if do you think that if you hadn't hit that crisis point, what would you be doing? Would you be doing what just continuing with the marketing, growing the investment firm? But what would you be doing?
I would probably still be doing that. Although I'll tell you, even in my last year of my highest success, I was starting to feel a little bit of restlessness, despite the success and the money. Yes, that exact feeling was starting to creep in. And would I still be doing it now? I probably would have retired and still kind of hit that existential vacuum. uh, when this happened, it just kind of brought it all on at once, and it's like it's getting hit with an atom bomb. And and when we first met, I was telling, I mean, this wasn't the only thing happening in my life. At about the same time, a few months after this happened, I end up getting divorced. And you talk about a massive life change where your career ends, your marriage ends, you're moving out of your home. I mean, all this stuff is happening at the same time. And I remember having a first conversation with you, and we were both sharing some dark moments. And you said, you're in the dark night of the soul. And that really resonated with me. But back to your original question, would I still be doing the same thing now? Probably not. I'm guessing I would have stepped away with it in search of something else, but I don't know what that something else would have been. It's hard for me to speculate if I hadn't gone through this little baptism of fire.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And you know, um, I think part of what really inspired me with your story and just in general is that one of my core beliefs is that everybody has this like purpose that they're really called to walk in, and it may, on its own, if you try to compare it, it may not seem so significant. They may not have millions of people that are listening to them. They may only have hundreds, but not everybody gets to go that way. But for those, and this is for the listeners, for those who get, like you said, they get pushed into, like, they get kicked by the universe into the baptism of fire. Like, that's a love kick. That's like, look, you're not going to move into that any other way. And so you're sort of forced into that. But then there are others who just sort of stay stagnant. They stay with this low level of burnout, this low level of, I don't know, it feels safe, it feels comfortable. So just to, whoever's listening to this, sometimes recognize that and don't wait for that kick to go, that love kick. It's a love kick, but go deep into it, right, to see what that next is. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have reached a big level of success or have this hyper successful person to find what's the other side. You could do it in any phase of your life. And so I think your life really has is a pattern and a model for people to be able to be inspired, encouraged to take that step. So tell me a little bit, Michael, about what was it that got you from 4 million to 250 million? You hinted at it, and you said it was, and it's sort of this universal problem that people know the work they do, but they don't know how to get more clients, right? It's not necessarily unique to your industry, but what was it that you were like, wait, I've got this figured out, and how did you figure it out?
Well, that's a great question, Kia. When we talk about that jump from 4 to 250 million, that was like the last 4 years of my career, and it was a kind of a culmination of everything I had learned over the previous 2 decades. So it gradually built up and got better and better over the years until I got in that situation. I was back with a CTA who was kind of starting from a low level of capital, and I just built the program on top of that. But I'll tell you my story, and it's a story that a lot of people, not only in my industry, but the financial industry in general, started out where it used to be you started out in the business, you started as a telemarketer, and they'll hire 10 or 20 new brokers and they get everybody licensed and everybody's all fired up to, they're going to be big financial traders. And then the reality of it is you're sitting in a cubicle with a phone and a list and you're calling all day. And it's degrading, it's humiliating, you feel like a magazine salesman, and it's no fun. And I was so passionate about the business that I was able to do that, because even that was a connection to being in this business, which I was very passionate about and wanted to be in very much. So I learned how to do that. I didn't like it, but while I was doing it, I kept thinking there's got to be a better way to do this. And there wasn't any books at the time. There wasn't any thing about marketing. That's how you did it. You picked up the phone and you cold called people. So sometime around, it was 3 or 4 years into the business, I got with a different company that it was just a small startup, and they gave me the freedom to start experimenting. And this was just about the time that websites were starting to come around. It shows how old I am. But started a website, started publishing a little bit on a blog, and that is about the time that I really got fascinated with marketing. And I just kept thinking there's got to be a better way to do this. And I discovered Dan Kennedy at that time. And that just opened my eyes to this whole new world that I didn't really even know existed, and certainly wasn't being applied to my industry. So I almost became obsessed with marketing. I started reading every book I could get. I started taking every course I could take. I started going to seminars. I started going to these big meets and listening to speakers. And yeah, not all of them were good. Some of them are just scammers looking for money, but there was a lot of good information. And I mean, Dan Kennedy was the top of that pyramid, in my opinion. And so I just learned so much. And from there, I started putting together my own. I didn't start out with a marketing program. I just started experimenting with different things, and some things worked and some things didn't. And I kept what worked and threw out what didn't. And within 2 to 3 years, I was no longer making outgoing phone calls. Those calls were coming in instead. And once you reverse that flow, that shifts the whole dynamic. But I was still selling on the phone. And the big shift for me came when you learn to be a good enough marketer that by the time they call you, you're not selling them, they're selling you. They're selling you on they're worthy to be your client. And when you get to that level, that's when you're where you want to be. And so that was a big, from there, it was really a matter of building out the marketing program, building authority, establishing yourself as an expert. We have like 10 different commandments, I guess you'd call them, that I listed in the book I did with you. But there's really 10 things. If you focus on those 10 things, you have a pretty good chance of doing something special.
I love that. There's so many in there. So many like points to unpack of what you just said. First of all, like we see people's success, right? And then we're like, gee, how can I get there? And like you said, in 4 years. No, this was 2 decades of building and being resilient and not giving up and knowing there has to be a better way and having that knowing. And you came out of your industry to bring something in. And ever since I started, and I love that story, because ever since I started in marketing and growing my business, which I've had for 20 years, which it's like go, whoever has had their business for longer than 5 years, go you, right? So that was the first thing. And I know Ben Glass, he's an attorney, he's a friend, a mentor, he's also a Dan Kennedy student. He brought that marketing, which is called magnetic marketing. And I love what you said. You reverse the flow. Instead of you going out to them, you stay still, make yourself magnetic, and then they come to you. So I'm going to unpack that a little bit too, because I don't think everybody who's listening knows about that. We know about it because we've been in it for years, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. So Ben Glass took what Dan was teaching, I think he was doing information marketing, so experts and maybe chiropractors and things, I don't know, but he brought that into the lawyer world. And as far as he was the first one who did that. So he was able to bring that into the lawyer world and apply it there. When I met Ben, I went to his lawyer conference. I had an agency, I had actually a print shop, or whatever, at that time, and I was learning everything that he was teaching lawyers, and I was like, I can make this work. And I brought it into my industry, and I was able to make it work. So really, that's such a key trait, to be able to get yourself outside of what you're used to, see the principles, and then bring them in and apply them to the industry that is broken and not working well. So when you are working with your clients now, or the people, in the commodity trading buyers, like what is those blocks that they have to get over to start, being that magnet, or reversing the flow, like you said?
You're talking about the blocks of the prospective potential client or the blocks of the CTA that's building a program?
Yeah, the blocks of the CTA whose life sucks because they're just these salespeople who's doing cold calls. They're hustling for their client. Yeah, those people who kind of where you were, where you're like, I love the industry, but I hated the day to day. And what is it that keeps them from shifting the way that you did?
Well, I'll tell you there's a couple things. Most CTAs, commodity trading advisors, are traders. They know the markets. They have a black box algorithm that trades the markets, or formula. And that's how they think. They think the trading formula, they think the math, they think posting their performance. And the business side of it, running the business, yeah, they have to worry about compliance. Yeah, they have to worry about their accountant and all this other stuff. And marketing or getting clients tends to they just kind of wing it. Well, yeah, the clients will come if we post out our performance and we're good at what we do, and we go meet a few people and personal contacts, and that'll all come. Well, that's wrong. No, it won't come. Maybe here and there sporadically if you get lucky, but if you want to build a $250 million business, it's not going to happen like that. You have to take an active role in market and market well. And one of the roadblocks in art was, there's a couple. First off, they don't know anything about marketing. Second of all, they're kind of afraid to, because of compliance. It's very strictly regulated. But they're still allowed to do marketing. There's a lot of them think, well, we can't do that. We'll get in trouble. Like, yeah, you can do it. You just have to say things right. You can't make false claims. You got to follow the rules. So there is a path forward to do that. And I think a lot of them just think of themselves as traders, and they don't. It's just been done the same way for so many years in our industry. This is how you do it. You put your performance up and you wait for people to notice it and find you. Or you go out and you network and you meet people and you talk about what you do. Or you hire some telemarketers to get on the phone. And now the big new thing is social media. Oh, you get on social media and you make friends, and people open account with you because they like you. And no, 99% of that is garbage. And what I set out to do is, this is what people really respond to. If you want somebody to get interested in you, this is what you have to do. And it's a radical shift. And it's that the ones, the mavericks that are willing to embrace that will be highly rewarded for doing so, because there's very few CTAs in our industry that know how to market their services effectively and are actually doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. It's, and I think if we applied it to a larger principle of marketing, there is a pain within the market that you work in, your area of expertise. There is this, we talked about at the beginning, there's this underlying pain that they can't really recognize. They just sort of give into it because they think it's just the reality of being in the financial world, and it's compliance, and we have to wrangle compliance, or we just have to submit to it. Like, let me use this. The dog who just kind of goes back on their back. We just submit, like,
right. Yeah.
That's the picture that I get. And I work with financial advisors, and also I work with lawyers, and some of them get really, really caught up in compliance and following the rules. And there's some you just can't get through, right? They're happy being rule followers, compliant, and just keep doing on what you're doing on. But for those who are like, oh, there's got to be a better way, here you are, they don't even know what that pain is, and then you put a finger on it. And I love your book that you made, because you truly, like, you help them bring words to the pain that they have, and they don't even know, they just feel it. So let's talk about your book. There's a lot of good nuggets in there. What is, and I'm going to force you into a corner, what is the one that you think gives the biggest breakthrough, the one principle, the one concept that would give the biggest breakthrough to someone who would request it?
Sure. And I have an answer for that. It's a concept. If you're familiar, there's a book out a few years ago called Red Ocean, Blue Ocean. I'm convinced they stole that from me, but I was using that 15 years ago, and I called it Big Pond, Little Pond, but the concept is the same. And the concept is this. This is true in CTA business, but it's also true in most of the financial industry in general. And with CTAs, what they do is they'll take their performance record and they'll post it right alongside who? There are the 100 competitors that they're with them, putting themselves in the exact same category as them. So, and this is actually two concepts combined in one. I'll get to the second one in a minute. But what I did that was my biggest breakthrough is these guys are, their target prospect is an experienced futures investor who is right now in the process of seeking to allocate money to a CTA. That's who they're looking for. So it's the guy that's interested. Not only is he well versed in what managed futures are and how to select, or how he thinks he should select a CTA, but he's also ready to invest right now, and he's actively seeking a CTA. Well, that is a tiny, tiny portion of all the potential investors that could invest with him. There's very few of those guys out there right now. And when you do get them, they're comparing you with your 100 other competitors. So your chance of getting one is very low. And on top of that, if you do get one of them, they're likely to bolt the first quarter or two you have a drawdown, because they're still looking at your 99 other competitors on their chart. And here's another guy that just had a great 2 quarters. Why not put my money there? So that's how those guys operate. A lot of them, especially when you're marketing to individual investors. Now you get up to the institutional level, it's a little bit different than that, but not a whole lot. So this book's written for going after the high net worth individual investor. And I call that, where most of these guys are, the little pond. Tiny little pond, very difficult to get the client. And when you do get them, they're not the greatest client. So what I did was took that outside all the way over the other side to where there's this great big pond. And these are typically high net worth investors who are interested, or may be interested, in alternative investments, or they may not know what alternative investment they're interested in, but they're interested in possibly taking part of their money and putting it in a higher risk, higher return type investment. So they're interested in looking for higher returns. They might be interested in diversifying from the stock market. They might be interested in a strategy that could, if they heard about it, could make money whether the market's moving up or down, rather than always having to have bull markets. So there's a lot of different interest points they may have, but they may have never heard of futures or commodities, or never done anything with commodities. They might not even know what a CTA is. But if somebody took them by the hand and showed them what it was and how it might meet some of those needs or desires they have, and educated them on it, well, then they might get real interested in it. And that was what program I built, was to do that, was to find those people, to go out and not say, hey, are you interested in CTA managed futures, which is what the other guys are doing, but go out and say, hey, who might be interested in learning about an alternative investment that could make money whether the market goes up or down? Or, there's several different appeals. That's one of them. Who might be interested in learning about that? Well, the hands that go up, they get a little booklet explaining how they can do it and introducing the commodities markets as a potential vehicle that could deliver that. And so you're just building on that interest and gradually taking them down a funnel to eventually comes out where, well, you might benefit from a managed CTA services. And once they start thinking about that, well, who do they identify in their mind as the expert and the person they would want to invest with? The person that taught them all this. So it's not only a way of introducing the service and introducing the products and the concept, but it's also building trust and authority with that person. So when they do get interested enough to take the next step, they're not even looking at any competition. They're going right to you because you're the person they already trust in doing this for them.
That's so good. And that truly is the next level of, I don't call it advanced marketing, but it's more than advanced marketing. It's really connecting with people on an authentic level, and we meet them where they are. And it's that outcome, it's the outcome based. Like, stop telling people, oh, this is for any industry. And I run into this helping my clients with their businesses and marketing their businesses, is that you stop talking about your services, stop talking about the product and how great it is. Look, let's talk about lawyers, right? A lot of my clients are lawyers. They talk about their legal services, how much experience they have, and how much money they can settle. And sure, but that's what every other lawyer is talking about too. So let's not talk about that. Let's meet your prospect where they are, which is maybe, what you described. They haven't quite gotten to that place of getting the returns they want, but maybe they're ready. Maybe they just don't know. Maybe they just need to be presented with the option of, there is a way to get to this better outcome, which what you said, there's whole different hooks to talk about, a way to, earn more money or manage the risk better, or however way that you want to phrase it. But it speaks to the experience and the outcome they want, not the how of getting there or what product is going to get them there. So that's really a new level of thinking, that it doesn't come natural. I mean, is that what you find? Like, I find that it doesn't come naturally to shift your marketing message from, let's just talk about the outcomes and your experience rather than my services and products.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing, you don't talk about your services and products until the very end, till they're already interested in everything else. So the majority of it is really introducing concepts. And Dan Kennedy has a whole thing on this, is the selling the concept. And so I'm not selling, I'm actually, when I was doing it, I wasn't selling the concept of managed futures or how to invest. I was actually teaching them how to do it themselves. Here's how you trade. Here's how you see the market going here. You put a position here. And so my strategy when I did it was teaching them how they could go and do this themselves. And I'm sure plenty of them did do that. So you're building yourself as a thought leader and teacher first, and being thought of that way, and as a portfolio manager second. Because, and this is another Kennedy concept, the more you show them how to do it themselves, the more they will want you to do it for them. And that, if you tell a portfolio manager that, he won't believe you up front, because that's a kind of a deep head stuff there, deep psychological play. But it's absolutely true, because by teaching them, you're establishing yourself as the ultimate expert in their mind. And they start to think, yeah, I could do this myself. And maybe they even do a little bit, but then they start thinking, man, I wonder how much better I could do if an expert was doing this for me. And you don't establish expertise by telling them what an expert you are, or by showing them how great your track record is, or you establish that expertise by teaching them how to do it. And that was the whole strategy, was based on that.
That's right. That's exactly right. Is meeting them where they are, and it's just these it's like layers of an onion. You uncover, well, here's your problem, here's how to solve it, and then suddenly they're like, well, you do it for me. Especially in these really high trust-based type services, where these strategies really make an impact and create that connection and bring the clients to you. So everybody elevates, everybody lifts. Michael, let me believe it or not, we're coming towards the end of our time.
Okay.
There's so much that we could talk about, but let me touch on a few things. I'm just going to ask you a few questions. If you could be free from the day-to-day work that you're currently doing, and there was zero loss of quality in your work, your relationships, and your finances, what would you be doing with your time?
Well, I'll tell you, Kia, I already had that. I told you I retired from the industry, and for 3.5 years, I had that choice that I could do just whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. And this is what I decided to do. So I'm back doing, what I want to do playing golf is nice, but that gets old after a while, and traveling's nice, but so is coming home, and it's nice to have that thing that you like to do, to spend your time with, and go where your passion is. And my passion was not only doing this, but I think when you and I were working on my business plan, one of the breakthroughs we had was I wanted to help people live their passion. Instead of, I was thinking of all these other things to do. I was thinking of, oh, I'm going to teach them this, but you were helping me think, yeah, but what's the core thing you want to get to? And when I started thinking of it that way, I'm helping people be able to live their passion, because a lot of these traders, trading is their passion, but they can't do it unless they can get clients, and they don't know how to do that. So if I can show them how to do that, I can help them live their passion and do what they love to do for a living. And there's nothing better than that, in my opinion.
Amen. Amen. And that's exactly right. And I think what was so gratifying about the process that you went through to understand that and to uncover that was that you just told me your story. That was it. And people think that their stories are not interesting, but your story of how you got to where you are is really one of the most powerful things that you could tell, and have someone else witness it with you. And so then it just, I don't know, it just brings more energy into it. And as, and I remember that breakthrough you had. And as you were telling the story, here's where I went, and now this is where you can lead people. So a lot of times, our purpose is leading people through where we have gone and helping them, uncover parts about themselves that they don't know. So that's incredible that you had that breakthrough. And I love that you did, and that you're doing it now, and, you wouldn't do anything differently. So let's wrap it up with this then. So, and it's kind of along the lines of, well, what would you do differently if you could? What would you tell what advice would you give your younger self, knowing what you know now?
What I would give my younger self is follow your passion no matter what. I think a mistake a lot of people make is they get a job and they just stay with it because there's no other path they see, and they never really explore what their passion is. And I think if people you have to find what your passion is and follow that if you want to have a fulfilling life. If you don't, you're never gonna fulfill yourself. And so, yeah, you got to get a job to pay the bills, but that doesn't mean you stop looking for your passion and stop looking for ways you can follow it, and hopefully as a career, if not in another way, but you've got to find it and follow it in some way.
Yeah. I love that. And it's, in some ways, I have my daughter, she's in college, and, just guiding her and coaching her in what her next career path is. Exactly what you're saying. What advice am I giving her that I wish that, I had? And you hear the follow your passion. It might feel a little cliche, but if you, I would say if you go a couple layers deeper, it's just get out of your head, right? We get so in our head about what we should do, and logically, and what makes sense, and what's expected, and what, just kind of in our head about it, rather than dropping down and be like, well, what makes me like happy? What makes me feel good? And what gives me joy, and without judgment of whether it's right or wrong. And don't shut that down. A lot of people shut that voice down for a variety of reasons. And surrounding yourself with people who won't let that voice be shut down, who will listen to that voice. Like I said, they will witness that, listen to your story, and say, I think this is really what lights you up. And then coming into agreement with that. And of course, always finding a way to finance your passion, right? Like, don't give up. Like, don't go out and be and then, live on this, no, we got to use your head for some things too. So we're not telling people to go and just live this carefree life and be broke. My daughter is studying engineering, and I told her my advice that I gave her, and we'll wrap up with this, was that she's like, what should I study? And follow your passion. Well, what is that? I don't know, but find a career that's going to fund your discovery of following your passion. And so, what career do you enjoy, and is going to get you a good job that's going to give you a return on your investment for your college? And then when you can, move into that line of work. It's a beautiful journey. And I think that finding people along the way who can help you along that is really the blessing in life.
I agree. And if we have time, if you have 1 minute, I've got a story to tell you that's right up that alley.
I love that.
But when I was younger, in my 20s, and I decided that trading commodities was my passion. I wanted to do that more than anything. And I wanted to trade it myself. So I had moved away from home. I'd moved to Florida. I graduated college a couple years earlier. Wasn't really sure what I was doing until I discovered this. And I was like, this is what I want to do, but I couldn't jump right into it. So I didn't have the money for an account. I had to get my first account. And I was just living paycheck to paycheck. I was tending bar on the beach, having fun. So I said, well, I got to get this money somehow. And the only way I could do that, I could see, was I got to earn it. And so I took 2 jobs and I worked 80 hours a week, 7 days a week. I mean, I had like a Sunday mornings off, I think, and Tuesday nights. Those were my 2 times off. The rest of the time I was working. I had enough time to get home, get in bed, get 7 hours sleep, get up and start over again. And that was my life for 9 months because I needed $5,000 to open my first trading account to be able to trade what I wanted to do. And after 9 months of doing that, and I didn't mind it at all because I knew I was doing it to follow my passion, to do that thing. So I did it. I got the money. And that's how I started my first trading account was with that money. And it was the most valued money I ever earned because it was to do something that really mattered to me.
That's awesome. Yes, it's like, but it had an endpoint, right? Like
Yeah.
you were at an age where you had it. You had the hustle in you. You were young. You didn't have like the pressures of life, family, maybe these big decisions that we deal with in middle age, and so you were able to go all in on working and earning that money, and look at where it got you.
Yeah.
That's
Gotta
good.
follow your passion.
Good advice for the young people listening to this. This is such an inspiring conversation, Michael. I really appreciate your insight and what you've shared. Can you tell the listeners how they can get your books or your books later, but book now?
Yeah, actually, Kia, I had a website ready to launch. I have the books ready to go. And then I got my first client before I even did that. And my work with the clients become so involved that I haven't really had time to put up my website out to other advisors yet. But somebody can, if anybody wants to reach me, you can reach me at my direct email, which is mfgross2019@gmail.com. And if you'd like a copy of the book, just send me a request with your address, and I'll send you a pre-copy right now before I actually put it out for sales.
Awesome. So now they get a shortcut to your book.
Yeah, you can get a direct line to me. So
Perfect.
that's how we're doing it now.
Works for me, and I'm sure it works for my listeners. And thank you to my listeners. Thank you, Michael, for being on the show, and for the listeners who listen to the end. And again, I always end the show by reminding you that you have been given a voice and a message that the world needs to hear. There are people who are called to hear that from you, and there are those who you are not called to help. So focus on the former. They're waiting for you.
If you enjoyed this broadcast, subscribe to the show, connect with Kia on LinkedIn, and let her know what inspired you. This broadcast was brought to you by Zine, a marketing and brand development agency that helps attorneys, entrepreneurs, and professional service providers create raving clients who love them, stay with them, and tell others about them. Visit zinemarketing.com/newsletter to sign up and receive the Breathe Life newsletter, a print publication of Zine.